WIC Radio presents The Truth Denied, Talk Radio, with your host, Roxy Lopez, where truth never lies. If you would like to speak with Roxy on the air, the call-in number is 347-327-9997. Here she is, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Truth Denied Talk Radio. I'll be your host today, Roxy Lopez. It is the 30th of March. We're at the end of March already. 2012 is going by pretty fast. I have a very amazing guest. I am so grateful to have him on the show today, John Fitzgerald. And, for those of you who don't, I know there are a lot of you out there who just don't believe in government anymore, and you've been writing me. And listen, I'm going to keep having people like John Fitzgerald on my shows, because it's very important that we distinguish the difference between those of us in this country who are trying to make changes whatever way we can, whether we're activists, whether we are running for some level of government. As you all well know, I'm a volunteer in my own city with an environmental group, the Clean and Beautiful Committee, which is, by the way, been trying to be phased out. That's Keep America Beautiful. A lot of actions that we take there, and I deal with our local government. So they know who I am. They know what I do, and bring awareness to a lot of people that I meet with, even within the, our own government. So there are many, many different levels of this new paradigm, if you will, of getting involved and making a difference. So whether somebody is rich or poor, or running for government, or in government, or whatever, they're good, and there are good and bad people. That's all there is to it. So I'm really excited to let you take a look and hear about John Fitzgerald, what he is doing. He's running for Congress as a Democrat in the U.S. House of Representatives in the newly rezoned District 11 in the 2012 June primary. So, he's a small business owner. He lives in Concord with his wife and children, and he's running because he feels strongly that, we, the people, the American people, are not being represented well in our districts or in Washington, D.C., and that is the nut right there. That is the nail on the head. We, the people, are not being represented correctly. So without any further ado, I do not want to waste another moment of airtime. I'd like to introduce you all, and a warm welcome to John Fitzgerald. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roxy, very much, and I really appreciate being on the show. And I just want to tell your listening audience, she and I had a chance to talk for about 2 hours, and I'm not joking, and I was flabbergasted with what she will speak to. And I've done some research on you for several weeks, and I'm impressed. And I was really impressed with our conversation. You have a wealth of information, and I like the fact that you say that we can all teach each other things that we don't all know about. And it's a learning process, and it's a real education for me also, going on your show and other people like us speaking about these issues. I learned so much more.
Thanks. And, I like as well what we did talk about, too, because, one of the things that you said to me today was, we need to all connect, and we shared a little bit of information on how we are all connecting together. So that is important. Activists and those who are serving, or volunteers, or folks like yourself, John, that are, trying to get a seat here, in government, try to change it up a little bit, and I love the idea that you're in it to win it. So that's awesome too.
Oh, I'm in it to win it, no doubt about it. Going against the machine is David against Goliath, but it's a lot of fun what I'm doing. It can be quite frustrating at times, trying to wake up the people to what's really going on. And as I said, I'll be the first to admit, I don't have all the answers, but I know something is horribly wrong with this country right now. And not just this country, but many countries of the world. But we seem to be feeding a lot of terrible things around the world, including wars, GMOs to our people, and other countries around the world are turning away the GMOs, but our country seems to be quite privy to the information that's coming out through experts of the world about what these products can do to the people and to animals, and they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and pharmaceutical companies are right by their side doing other horrible things that are affecting all of us and our children's future.
Absolutely. Thank you. I mean, again, listeners, John is very well-rounded. John, you're just amazing. I mean, we in a couple of short hours, we talked about the Federal Reserve, we talked about the Franklin scandal and Fort Benning even, 9/11, the NDAA, internment camps. I mean, we talked about, GMOs and chemtrails. And so John is very well-rounded people, so listen up. Seriously, listen up. John, how did you get involved in running for the government? What were some of the steps that happened in your life?
Well, it's interesting, and I'm kind of laughing right now because I've been asked that several times, and I've actually given a few different answers because I had so many reasons to run. But the main thing that got me into the thrust of this, it really was the impetus, was 9/11, and I'm not laughing except for the fact that it blew me away, no pun intended. But my son, for about 3 years, out of high school, my son was telling me, Dad, there's a movie you really need to see, and it's unbelievable about the events of 9/11, what we weren't told. And I said, well, I know the government probably allowed it to happen, Brian. I don't doubt that whatsoever if you look at the Gulf of Tonkin incident and things throughout our history, but I can't believe what you're telling me is it sounds like this is kind of an inside job thing. He goes, Dad, you just got to see this film. And it was Loose Change. And I said no, literally, for 2 or 3 years. And then on the 7th or 8th, I guess it was the 7th anniversary, I had a day off on 9/11, and I said, hey, Brian, what's that film? So he told me the name of the film, and I said, can I Google it, or what do I do? And he goes, yeah, just YouTube it, Dad. So I watched this film, and I was first off, I was amazed at the information that we never were told. And there was so much information in that film. In fact, there was probably way too much information in that film because it was so hard to follow. But what it did is it opened up a new horizon for me. It literally took me down a rabbit hole. So I found myself that same day watching 6 other films that I could find anything and everything. I had an absolute thirst to learn more about the events of 9/11. And there was a film that I finally found, and it was a documentary presentation given by architect Richard Gage, Blueprint for Truth. And this is right in the very early, Richard and I are now friends, but I didn't know Richard. And Richard was quite nervous in this presentation, but his information was amazing. He was very articulate. You could tell this was something new to him. It wasn't some person who was contrived. He was speaking from his heart, speaking from his expertise, which is architectural designs and engineering, and it just opened up a whole new world for me. And from there, I have to say, it's horrified me, and it's also at the same time, it's just educated the heck out of me. I mean, I've literally just gone into so many other realms that I can't believe that are all tied to the same machine. The same mechanisms are in place, controlling everything, including the media. The media, I realize now, is completely contrived. It's conditioning for the masses. And the stories that we hear throughout history and have heard throughout history aren't the true stories. If you look at the research on the Internet or you get books, not on TV, forget the TV for the most part when it comes to any news. It's not news. It's entertainment. And it's sad entertainment because it's really not educating anybody. It's just dumbing us down as far as I'm concerned. So from 9/11, I got into geoengineering. I started realizing that, they're spraying our skies, and we have no say-so in it. We're supposed to be a republic under the Constitution. We have a democracy is what it's called, and truly that's what it is. It's just a democracy. It's not a republic. We don't have any say-so in what our government is doing or what agencies of the government are doing. They do things. They test on us. They've been doing it throughout history, using us as guinea pigs. And there are laws on the books that most people aren't aware of that are signed law, whereby they can actually spray things. They can actually do things in our water. They can do other things in our soil with spraying chemicals and to see what the effects are with the populace. And it's been going on, as I said, for a long time, but it just seems to be speeding up. And under President Bush, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not a Democrat when it comes down to it. What I am is an American first, and I think we all are American first. And this partisan game that is played in the news and with our politicians is really just a distraction. It's to keep us at odds with each other while they're talking about wedge issues that really have no importance to us in our communities, while they're passing these very nefarious, unconstitutional laws through the pike all the time, and the majority of people aren't aware of it because it's not in the news. It has to be looked at on the internet and or other sources, alternative media. So that's where I am right now. I'm trying to run to wake people up like you are, and I really appreciate our conversation we had, Roxy, and this conversation we're having right now with your listenership. It's so important that people realize that we have to step up, and the only way that we're going to take this country back and get this world back the way it should be is for good people to step up and actually do something to combat what's going on, and we can do that in numbers. We can't do it alone. We cannot do it alone. And I'm only one person running across this country on principles that everybody should be running on, and I hope other people, and I'm sure there are other people out there that aren't getting the spotlight like I'm not. The machine just basically eats us out and spits us out, and the machine is all you ever see on the news. But there are a lot of good people out there trying to get in, I'm sure, and it's going to take people like all of us to get in there and really make an exact real change. And that's why I really appreciate, and I can't tell you enough how much I respect Ron Paul and what he's doing. All these Democrats that I've always admired my whole life in politics and in my community, I found out who are part of this machine. They truly are part of the machine. You'll go talk to them about, you guys want to knock Ron Paul, you want to knock what Dennis Kucinich is saying, what Bernie Sanders is saying about the Federal Reserve and about these wars. But aren't these the progressive principles that all of you, speak to and you've been speaking to for years, but you for some reason are protecting President Obama, who's pushing new agendas with war. He's got the drumbeat going towards Syria and Iran. He's extending the wars that we're already in that are illegal. This isn't progress. Progressive means progress. That's the root of it. What is going on? They don't want to talk to me about it. In fact, behind the scenes, they'll talk to me about it. But when I'm in a forum speaking to these organizations, they just look at me like the deer in the headlights. It's only after the presentation is done, individuals will come up literally independently of each other and say, John, you're speaking to the choir. And as I told you earlier, Roxy, I'll say, then why aren't we singing in unison? We care about our communities, we care about this country, but why are you sponsoring and endorsing people in the Democratic Party? And, say the same thing for the Republican Party, obviously. I'm just running as a Democrat. But I find it in the Democratic circles, they're just protecting President Obama just like they did the Republicans protecting Bush.
Why?
We have to be Americans first.
Why? Why are they protecting? What do you think that mechanism's all about? Why are they protecting the president?
I think, honestly, a lot of them enjoy the stature they have in our society when they're in these political realms or in these political offices. I think they get a lot of perks. They have a lot of power, and I hate to say it, absolute. What is it? What's the old saying? Corruption. What is it? Absolute corruption corrupts absolutely. Whatever it is. That statement, right. A famous statement that came out years ago, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think term limits is probably a pretty darn good idea at this point. And I've had a lot of people say, "Well, John, you're running on term limits, but if you got in, we wouldn't want you to get out." And I'll say, but you know what? The fact is, I know I won't change. I know where I have a lot of ethics. I have strong convictions, but there are a lot of people in there right now that need to be termed out. And for that reason, I think we should go with term limits. So I've had a lot of people say, you can't go out there and run on term limits, John, because people like you, we need to get in there, and we need to have you stay in there with other people that are like-minded. So I don't have all the answers, Roxy. I just know that there's a lot of corruption going on at the expense of our children. When you're feeding our children bad food and you're sponsoring, through the news and through advertising, horrible products for our children to consume, something is terribly wrong, and we got to change it.
Absolutely. Now, who are some of your, you mentioned a few people earlier, but who are some of your comrades in this fight? Like, who are some of the people that are standing with you, and assisting you, with your
campaign?
Your campaign.
Oh, well, Patrick is he's one of my gurus. I call him the guru, and Joel. Joel was here with me. He's the one who actually got me to run initially, and through Joel, he had met Patrick, and sure enough, Patrick and I hit it off, and Joel's now in San Diego, but he is a godsend, literally. And he's a gentleman that you've spoken to, I know, and he is a wealth of information, and he is the most dedicated individual you could ever have as a friend and as a campaign advisor, director, anything. He is there for me. And we bounce things back and forth. He's educated the heck out of me. I've educated him on some other stuff. And as I said earlier, and you and I agreed with earlier on the phone, it's an education. Every day we're being educated. And you taught me some stuff today that I didn't know about the food production for animals and what's happening to the animals, our pets, and how they're getting sick, just like what we're finding out in the human populace about the foods and all these things that are causing all these illnesses. And Patrick is one of those people that have just opened my eyes to the food industry, to all these other agencies that supposedly are protecting us, who are not protecting us whatsoever. And I'm not trying to knock the people that are in the lower echelon of these, the EPA or the USDA and the FDA and all these other agencies. It's generally the people at the very top. It's compartmentalized, as you and I both know. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. Everything I look at, I can't believe. I'm incredulous at first when I look at certain things, and I realize, well, it's all part of the game plan. And it's just unconstitutional. All these things that are going on, if you look at the Constitution with the National Defense Authorization Act that President Obama just signed into law just in the last 2 months or so, where you can be rounded up and just deemed a terrorist, and he can put you away indefinitely without any due process. And this is a constitutional attorney as our president, supposedly. It makes no sense. But it really does make sense when you study the entire picture. It's all, in my eyes, it's all a plan. And why? I think because these people, as much money as they have and everything else, they love the power. And I think all the power players in play right now, and that's why I appreciate Dennis Kucinich's, the Bernie Sanders, and the Ron Pauls of this world, and people like you and people out there that I've met in the last 2 years that are really trying to exact change and good change for all of us, not the change we heard from President Obama. I'm talking about real change for our families.
Yes, absolutely. You just said a mouthful there about the power. People really need to wake up to something, that there are elites that have a lot of money. A few years back, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I had somebody managing my career, if you will. And on the first time I ever met him, I didn't like him. I picked up something about him, and I wasn't sure what it was. This was quite a few years back, actually. But anyway, and I had an attorney at the time, and I spoke with my attorney about it, and I said, I don't know, there's just something about this guy that it makes me uneasy. I don't know what it is. And I said, I don't know, maybe it's because he's so wealthy or this or that, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, I'll meet with him one more time. Anyway, long story short, I met with the gentleman a second time. And I figured out what it was. He had all the money he needed. He liked the power. He liked to control the individuals around him. And I watched him do this. I watched him do it with his office and his secretaries. And I watched the manipulation and the game playing that he did. And it was all about power. Power is a drug. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. Is that these are power hungry, control freak, psychopaths, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, and Patrick and I, your director, Patrick and I had a conversation about that, and he asked me, but is it just the idea that they're psychopaths? Don't they care about, but they care about their children, they care about their children's children. And my take on it was like, a psychopath also has a narcissist.
Yes.
And to me, if you look at it from another angle, and I'm going to come right out and say this, and you don't have to agree with me, but the agenda for these individuals is to keep their legacy, to keep that bloodline, to keep that going. And I don't think they view it like you and I do. I don't think they look at it like they look at it like survival of the fittest. Otherwise, Princess Diana would still be alive.
I agree with you.
You understand what I'm saying?
If
you don't fit into their plan, you're not going to live long. Even if you're their own children. So my point is that's wrong. I disagreed with Patrick, and I said, I don't think they care the way we do, like the love and the wanting to nurture their families. It's all about, again, power and making sure that their legacy is in place and their children and children's children are strong enough to take the bull by the horns of the way they want it done. I mean, look at history. That's what it's all about. Conquer, divide, conquer, divide, conquer, divide. Yep. Now, let's come back to our country, because we do have a sort of global government evolving here, and you and I talked about that a little bit, but let's come back into our own backyard in our own country.
Sure.
What can, what can you do? I'm going to put you on the spot, John. What can you do? What are the steps that you're going to be taking? Let's say you run. Let's talk about the campaigning. Who do you speak to? I know I've seen your website, and the website's in the chat room for anyone who wants to take a look at John's work. And you do make videos. You're very tech savvy. You're out there doing the stuff, and you're live streaming and everything. But okay, so you're reaching people in audiences, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about the general public. That you're getting the attention of. So start there, number one. And number two, I definitely want to know what happens if you get elected. Let's talk about that second. So let's talk about the campaign right now and the people that you're reaching. Is that fair enough?
It's very fair. And honestly, I just want your listeners to know, you can ask me anything and everything, and I'll give you actually the truth. I'll tell you everything that I know, and I speak from my heart. So I'm not hiding anything, and I never will. The thing that I'm trying to do right now is just trying to get speaking engagements, and it's very tough. When you're going against, especially as a Democrat, and you're going against a Democrat who's been in office for 38 years, George Miller, and he's considered, over the years, I considered him for many years also a very progressive Democrat. And his dad actually ran as a senator, and was actually a senator for 20 years with the same name, George Miller. A lot of people didn't even realize when his son was running that the son was running. They thought the father was, and they voted for him. So I'm going against a powerhouse when it comes to the Democratic Party, and someone who's beloved by so many in this district. Now, the district's been gerrymandered, by the way. It's been redistricted like most of them across the country. So I have a little better chance, I think, of getting into these other areas that don't know him as much, because he's pretty much been entrenched in this one area for 30 years, and every campaign he's been talking to the same people. But I've been locked out for the most part. The Democratic Party literally looks at me and they turn the other way. I had an opportunity last time I ran to speak to the endorsement people for the Democratic Party, and they sat me in a room. This is no joke. No one was allowed to go in there except for it was me and the 28 people sitting in a horseshoe table section. 28 people. And they said, okay, John, tell us a little bit about yourself. And so I told them about who I am and what I'm trying to do. And I said, I got to be honest with you, I look around this room, and they had all these signs of all these people, Barbara Boxer, they had Nancy Pelosi, and all these senators and congressional leaders and all these local people that were politicians that I used to admire. And I hate to say used to, but it's a fact. Used to. All around the room, all these signs. And I said, I look around this room right now, and I said, I see all these signs of people I highly admired and I used to really look up to. And I realized that the great majority of them are sellouts, and were sellouts, and I fell for it. These aren't the progressive Democrats that I thought that I was voting for. These aren't the people I thought I was voting for. These people were brought into the same realm as why you are here, to basically go with the mantra and tell people what the party wants them to tell people and condition people to believe that their party is better than the other one. And I realized that all the parties are the same. The parties are the same. They're no different. They're all manipulating the masses and manipulating the Democrats on this side or manipulating the Republicans on this side. And I spoke for about 15 or 20 minutes. It's not on film. We weren't even allowed to film. They told me I couldn't film. And after I was done, two of the people came up to me, and the one guy that ran the whole thing. This is for the endorsement for the Democratic Party. Now I knew they weren't going to endorse me, Roxy. They're totally going to endorse George Miller. They always do, like the unions always do. And I'm thinking I'm a union guy, and he's not representing the unions, and I would. Then he came up to me and he goes, "John, we will never endorse you for what you just said." And I said, "John, you weren't going to endorse me anyway." And he goes, "Well, I said, "You're going to endorse George Miller. You're going through the motions with me because you have to. I understand that." And I said, "I'm not trying to be mean. I appreciate you inviting me here at least." And he said, "But John, you can't be that honest with people." And I said, "Why not, John?" And he goes, he was stammering. He goes, you can't be. He goes, "And John, you're speaking to the choir. I know what you're talking about. I agree with you." And I said, "Then why aren't we singing in unison?"
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, "Touche" to me. And he said, "Good luck, John." He goes, "You ever think about maybe running against someone else or running in a different political for a different political office or what have you? We could help you." And literally, he told me, "I could get you into another position, John. I could get you another position." But he goes, "You're going to have to play the game, and you'll have to be in the farm system for a while." This is how it works, Roxy. So it's the good old boy club, the good old girl club.
Yeah,
and
that's what I call it.
Well, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So what am I doing? I'm trying to get. They just offered to have me speak to them again, and this time we want to try to get it on film, and we want to put it on YouTube. We want people to see it. We want people to see it.
For those of us who do not know how this works, you're gonna go and speak again, and then if they don't endorse you, what happens? What is for those who don't know what endorsement means? If they don't endorse you, what happens next?
Well, the endorsement is really it's a joke because they're not going to endorse. They've already endorsed George Miller. We already know that. It's 38 years of endorsing him, and everybody else that I'm railing against in my party, who I know are not telling us the truth. So they just let me go through the motions, basically, and then what's going to happen is they're not going to even call me back like they did last time. They never sent me an email. They never called me back. So I'm a guy that doesn't stop. I pursued them. And all I got was John on the end of the line just stammering with me once again. Charlie was supposed to email you, John. Didn't he email you? I said, "Well, John, what was the answer?" I don't know. I said, "Well, can you get back to me? I want to know if I'm going to be endorsed or not." Well, I knew I wasn't going to be endorsed.
Right.
They never even had the guts to call me or email me. I never got an answer. So what I just wanted to open their minds to, I know what's going on. And I'm truly a progressive Democrat. It's progress. Progressive is progress. Where's the progress with them? There is no progress. It's their mantra. Oh, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do that for the people. Everything they're doing, and everything on the Republican side that they're doing, is working against the people. They're not representing us well. There's no transparency with the Democratic Party under Obama, and he ran on transparency. And look what George Bush was doing and George Sr. was doing, and baloney, they're all doing it.
Right.
So I'm just trying to get speaking engagements, and lately, which is very nice, I had the Tea Party contact me, and I'm actually talking to very level-headed people in the Tea Party who it's resonating with, who are actually getting me out there and speaking, getting some speaking engagements. And they're saying, good for you. And you're talking about we're Americans first, and we're not a party. We're people that are Americans first and foremost. And we have a Constitution. We have a Bill of Rights that's being eroded and just completely trampled. And we've got to do something about it. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's who I have right now are very dedicated people like you and like me who are out there trying to get people like us a speaking voice instead of the voice in the wilderness all the time. But it's very tough. So why am I running, and what can I do? One thing I can do is when I get out there and I speak to people in these groups, it does resonate. Not the endorsement people. I mean, I already know where they're coming from. But the people that are in the public, the people like us that are out there and they know something's not right and they allow me to speak. I have people volunteering to help me. I have people that are willing to go out to the BART stations out here, which is our transit we have out here for rail. We've had it here for years. We go to the BART stations. Last time it worked beautifully. Patrick thought about it. He goes, let's hit BART. He goes, you mentioned that Barbara Boxer years ago when at the inception of BART, when it started, she was out there. You saw her when you were a child in the early 70s. And I said, yeah, that's true. So we hit BART. That's what we're going to do again. And this time, I don't know if, I'm sure you knew about it, but your listeners, they raised the last time I ran, the candidate statement was $2,000, right around there. Mm-hmm. They just upped it 4 times what it was 2 years ago. It was close to $8,000 this time. Yeah. So we got our money together, my money, Patrick helped out, other friends, other people that were contributing the best they could, and we found a way to get the money together so we have a candidate statement. So George Miller has a candidate statement, and we have a candidate statement, and the person running as a Republican does not. She couldn't even afford it. The poor lady didn't even know, and I have a lot of respect for her, by the way. She didn't even know that they raised the rates. She had no idea, and she never was able to collect the money to get on there for the statement. But Roxy, we ran into numerous people we met from other districts who had no idea, like we didn't. No idea that they raised the rate 4 times what it was 2 years ago. And they just basically locked out the rest of the people that are trying to get into office because they can't afford it and they don't get all these endorsements and they don't have the machine working to collect money for them. And I'm running literally my campaign on no corporate-sponsored money, nothing, zero. I don't want a dime from these corporations that are destroying us. I'll take it from people like us and people that are in small business that want to sponsor, help us do what we can, but no special interest money. And the one thing I'm going to do when I get in there, and I'm not going to stop running. I guarantee I'm dogged. I have strong convictions. I'm going to keep on running until I get in there. And this message, when I get out there, it's getting bigger and bigger as far as a little audience. When I have a little audience, I have other people contacting me now through the Tea Party, as I said, and other small organizations that are willing to let me speak. And it's going to be a snowball effect. I really believe in the future. So this is something where, as you and I talked about earlier, a lot of people that are running are trying to, get awareness, raise awareness to the public. Well, I'm trying to do that, obviously, but I'm in it to win. I'm in it to change people's hearts and minds and realize that there are people like us who get in there. They're going to need other people like us to actually, get together and form unite and form an organization within the, not the Democrat or Republican, both parties, to change this country and exact real change, as I said. And it's not an easy thing, but I think we can do it. There are Dennis Kucinich out there. Well, there was. He just got pushed out, as we all know, but he'll be back in there, I think, in a different district, different state maybe. And you got Bernie Sanders, you got the Ron Pauls, you got a lot of people that are talking about what's really going on in this country with the Federal Reserve and the wars. And I think you get people that are like-minded, and you get people that are willing to fight and put themselves out there, and we can do a hell of a lot.
And thank you for explaining that, John. Again, one of the problems is those who have woken up to some of the reality in our country and really the whole world in the last, I'm seeing a time frame of the last 2 to 3 years. It seems like a lot of people that write us, for instance, that's the time frame of when they started to realize, not just with government and corporations, but that the whole thing is just one big mess, convoluted, and that mainly the people, we have no voice, we're not being represented anymore in the fashion like our forefathers had planned. And so it just, and the rabbit hole is deep, so when you start to sort of meander into a subject matter like the Federal Reserve, let's say, and you start doing a little digging, and it's not a little digging, is it? You find yourself as miles and miles of of connections that go back years and years and years and years. And really, I think what I would like to see, and I think you're doing this as well. I would like to see the awareness campaigns, because that's really what this is about. It is about getting people up to par with what has been going on and what's going on right now. And I call it, media whiplash and Obama passing laws whiplash and bills whiplash. It's just all coming down the pipe so fast. It seems like there's been a quickening of events and false flags and this and you name it, like this whole distraction going on. And then in the middle are the people. The people who have lost their homes and their charge cards and their cars. I mean, we keep hearing this over and over again, but people, it's true, and their jobs, and now they've got, they used to have a really good job where they could support their family, and now they're working. I always tell the story of the electrician in my neighborhood who was part of a certain builder that I won't name, that was, the lead electrician many, 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 many years. He is now a cook at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You see, he worked 25 years in this field and is good at what he did, and now is a cook at a restaurant. But when I speak with him, he says to me, and I agree. He said when the crisis hit, and he almost lost everything, and losing the job was a big deal. But he and his wife managed to keep his home, but they lost other things. But he said when that all happened, and then he got this job, which takes some humility, if you ask me, to now become a cook at a restaurant for him, who was, an expert in the field of being an electrician, a lead electrician, the job, the boss, the guy the go-to guy. He said that through the crisis, he learned something about himself, and his family's gotten tighter, and they've gotten back to some real simple values, and he actually likes his job, so he's keeping the job. He's been working there for almost 4 years at the restaurant, and he likes what he's doing, and it's not the money that he used to get, but they're managing now, and they're paying their bills, and his life is simpler, and he likes his life right now. And his wife does, and his family does. So something changed, and he got back to basic values. Now, don't you think, as part of the whole for this campaign year and the whole 9 yards, I would think that would be the heart of the matter, to bring us all together, the citizens, the general population, bring us back together into that bubble or under that umbrella of let's get back to basics. And part of those basics are morals. And morals in, step up to the plate and, for instance, volunteer on, for instance, your campaign or other one. Notice those who are running for offices, whatever they are, and help you. Get involved. If something strikes somebody's heart, get back to our basic values, which at the end of the day is, I believe, our whole country needs to get back to basics. Government is too big. It's corrupt.
It's very corrupted. You hit a nerve with me. A lot of things we're talking about hit a nerve, but it's so true. My wife and I were sitting around one day talking about, we just moved. We got caught up in this whole housing thing. We didn't go under, but we came close, and we finally sold the house after 2.5 years. And now I'm living in my hometown where I grew up, just about a mile away from my mother. And we're living in a tiny house. We went from a pretty good-sized house and everything else, and we try to live within our means. But we got caught up in that whole game, too, where we were, not so much using our credit cards, but we were buying things we didn't have to buy. And we weren't living like my parents said. My parents would always tell me, my dad just passed away, but they're late 80s. And, I'm the youngest of 6. I'm almost 50 here. And it was just so funny because my brothers and sisters, we'd be purchasing things, in our families and all this stuff, purchasing some stuff for our homes. And my parents would say, how do you afford that? You're not using the credit cards, are you? Well, why don't, we didn't buy, Paul and I, it's my mother Denise, my mother, saying, Paul and I didn't buy this unless we had money we paid with cash. You're going to go into debt. All of you are going to go into debt. This isn't how we grew up. We grew up in the Great Depression. And, we used to kind of like, oh, come on, Mom, everything's okay. And that's exactly what I'm finding out. There are a lot of people, as bad as things are, and they're bad, and I think they're going to get worse. But the one good thing that's coming out of it is communities are pulling together. Families are pulling together. They're not going out there and buying things they can't afford like they used to. They're not buying all the gadgets and everything else. If you live on a waterway, like we're not too far from the Delta out here, a lot of people and a lot of friends might got caught up in buying boats and ski-doos and everything else, and they couldn't afford it. It was all on credit. And those poor people have lost their homes, and they got literally, and it's breaking up their families. But the one thing, since I've talked to some of these families since, that are pulling it together, they're realizing, you know what, we're actually as happy as we could ever be, and we don't have the money we had, and we're not using the credit cards, but we're actually living the way we should be living, and we're affording things. We have a third of the income we used to have, but look, we're paying cash on things, and we can afford to do some nice things once in a while and go on trips, and we're camping where we used to go to these hotels. Now we're going off with the kids camping. And this is happening. Stuff like this is happening. People are starting organic gardens. They're starting to work with communities and within the community to help each other out. And I think that's the great thing that's coming out of this entire economic disaster. People are pulling together. But, it's interesting also, I was going to just let you know, Elizabeth Warren, you've heard of Elizabeth Warren, I'm sure, who's running for a Senate seat in the East Coast. And she's a statistician. She went to Harvard, and she's an amazing researcher with statistics on, 1970s versus today. Mm-hmm. And she just came out with some research recently showing absolute facts. And the Democrats are kind of demonizing her for telling this, and the Republicans, of course, are doing the same thing to her. But it shows, her research proves that in a two-parent family, a child with two parents, have a better chance of seeing their parents file for a bankruptcy than a divorce right now. And people realize divorces are about 50% or more right now, and you have a better chance of seeing your parents file for a bankruptcy. That speaks volumes. It's disastrous right now.
Well, and you talked about the media and how it's just one big, mainstream media is one big lie, and you're right, because they keep telling us, for the last 2 years that, the stock market's going up, and of course it's been artificially inflated. That's why it's going up, because they control, the Federal Reserve, the banks, it's all controlled. It's all a controlled mechanism that you can't, we, the people, can't even begin to conquer or understand, for that matter. And, and I also see that our country, it's really coming to light that we are a consumer debt. It's consumer debt. We consume, and the debt is which it's so backwards. It's absolutely backwards to keep, and that's a slave thing, I think, to keep people in debt. You and I were talking about, college. By the time, somebody's done with, 6 years of college, they owe $250,000, and they start off, this young college grad starts off in the world owing a lot of money to the world, and that's not fair. In my opinion, good education should be free, but that's just me. But that's a story for another day. Regardless of all of these different issues, and then we've got a lot of people caught up in the middle, people with diseases like cancer, like diseases that the CDC won't even admit is a real disease, like Morgellons disease. I mean, there's extremes, There's polarities in the diseases, intestinal diseases now, making changes to the DNA through GMOs, what Monsanto represents, and how many people don't know about Monsanto, and how many people, look, on the news the other night, and you and I talked about this, we all, those of us who are in the know with GMOs know that it started with, genetically modified corn syrups, putting all the canned goods and all this crap. Well, here's our mainstream news the other night talking about one of the biggest antioxidants that you can eat now is popcorn. Yeah, oh, really? And you know how many people are going to believe that? And to just look in those popcorn bags, to just look on the, before you stick that in the microwave, read it. It's got genetically modified, corn oil. If not, the popcorn itself may very well be genetically modified. So, how many people are going to see that and hear what they want to hear? This is, I think, the problem, and where we have a solution right next to it is that we need to educate people on the lies, right? And that's what you're doing. It's a lie that to eat this. It's like saying eating a Mickey D's burger is, will save your life. You know what I mean? It's like, but people believe it because they want to believe it.
Sure, they do. And along those lines with the food, and pardon me if I sound like I'm laughing in the background. I'm amazed at the stuff that we're talking about, because I do, and you do, I know. But I think people hear this for the first time. Now, I think your listeners are very privy to this, obviously. But when I go out there and I've talked on other radio shows, people have called in and said, "What is he talking about?" But if they do the research, it's true. But with the agriculture and farmlands and everything else, you're talking about the 70% of antibiotics that are used in America are used on cows. Well, what are we feeding the cows? Genetically engineered corn. Things that cows aren't supposed to be eating. They're supposed to be eating grass. They're supposed to be in free range and eating grass, pastures. And these cows are getting sick, so they give them antibiotics. 70% of our antibiotics are used on the cattle. It's amazing, and you have these cattle ranchers admitting to this in many of these films and a lot of this research. Well, they're talking about also that these cows, when they're eating this corn, they found out the corn, genetically engineered corn, there was a certain caterpillar or worm that was eating these stalks of the corn. So they put this, DNA stuff, modified organisms in the crop and the seed, and it would split the stomach of the worm. And I know you know this one already, but a lot of the population doesn't, a lot of the public. And, well, they're finding that the cows started having the same effects. Some of the chambers of the stomach started splitting. Well, think about that. And we're eating the cows.
Right.
With the product in the cows. So synergistically and accumulatively speaking, we have these chemicals in us now. And this is why I can't say it enough. People, you have to wake up to the horrors of what's going on in this country with the food industry. There's so many other things we can talk about, but the food is so, so important. In fact, I think it's the most important. The food, the air, and the water we drink. They're horribly tainted. They're toxic for the most part, and we have to wake people up to that.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, our producer just sent me a breaking news story. The Food and Drug Administration has rejected a petition from environmentalists that would have banned the plastic hardening chemical bisphenol A from all food and drink packaging. So they just rejected it, and that's a whole other ball game, man. I know exactly what they're talking about. So see, it's just one thing after the other. Even with geoengineering cases, by the way, with chemtrailing, those who have miles of data, 8 years of water and soil testing and so forth, and finally put it like a class action lawsuit or just a lawsuit to get break ground in their local counties. These cases get dismissed in the the early stages. The development of that case, it's stages, early stages. So, and that's happening more and more and more as more and more people get aware and are bringing it. By the way, you and I have a comrade in common, Rosalind Peterson.
Yes, yeah, she's wonderful. I love Rosalind. Yes.
When working with her, we talked about that a little bit too, but another person, Rosalind was USDA crop loss adjuster for many, many years, and she also comes from a family of activists. I don't know if you know that. Her parents were activists.
I know that.
Do you know that? So
me,
she's quite a treat, isn't she? But
she is.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But anyway, what I was going to say is, this is what can we do to help you? Let's just get to the point. What can we do to help you? I'm definitely going to contact you and get some more information about you and get you up on our website as well. And I'm going to download this show, John, and I'm going to load it to YouTube. So this show will go in indefinitely. And I want. Where do people contact you if they want to help your campaign? You're in California. What part of California? You can restate all that. What is the 11th district? Where are you? So the people that are listening that are near you, physically, geographically near you, maybe they want to help.
Okay, it's Northern California. It's actually from part of Antioch, which is just east of me here in Concord. It goes out to Richmond, and Richmond's a large city, and it goes out to a very wealthy area, Danville, Alamo, which is wasn't part of the district last time. A lot of people were confused because they think it's District 7 still. This is District 11. It's much larger, and it encompasses a very large area. But what people can do, and what you're doing for me, is a great help getting me exposure, and that's what I really need. I just need people to get me speaking engagements. And when I get speaking engagements, I can give them a wealth of information, and they can tell other people. We have tons of a whole bunch of flyers. Rosalind's given me thousands of flyers, and I have other flyers from, a whole bunch of stuff that we talk about.
Yes.
And I can give a whole bunch of information about it. But the main thing is our website. They can contact me over the website, johnfitzgeraldforcongress.com. And they can also contact me, and I have no problem giving my phone number out if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, whatever it is comfortable for you, not a problem.
Let's do it. It's 925-383-9927. That's 925-383-9927. And I call you. If I don't pick right up, I call you back. And that's what I need. I just need people to get me out there to speak in these groups.
Okay, and what about an email? Do you have an email?
Yeah, it's at John at johnfitzgeraldforcongress.com.
Okay.
John at johnfitzgeraldforcongress.com.
And 4 is spelled out F-O-R.
Actually, it's F-O-R, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Congress. Okay, same as your website. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll also have all of this information available on the video. I'm going to also do a breaking news story on you. So I'll get some background and put together an article, put the show in the article, the whole 9 yards, and we'll just keep that out indefinitely, and then we'll see what we can do to get you on the front of our website so that people can contact you. And so people will listen to the show again and again and again. I mean, it'll be archived and it'll just continue. We just keep putting it in their face. So we're definitely going to do that for you, John, and then we'll have your phone number available in the whole 9 yards, which is amazing, and thank you for doing that. And we'll just keep passing out the information, and hopefully we can get some interest for you from our side of the fence over here. And I applaud your efforts, and I believe in you, John, and I want to put you in touch also. I'm going to put you in touch with others throughout the country, regardless, that are in the same boat. We're going to have quite a few people on the show. Is there any, anything that you find most importantly that you want to get in, I don't know how to say it. What do you want to say to the people? Anything that's just the most important thing to you? Let's use these last few minutes to speak to the people.
Well, what I want to just let the people know is there are people, as I said earlier, like you, me, who are out there really trying to get people to awaken to what's really going on, and they need help. And the way you can help me is, as I said, you call me. I can give you all this other information that I have, and you can work with me. And it doesn't matter if you're in my district. We could work together across this country, and we can really do some stuff to really exact good change, like I said earlier. But the one thing I want people to really realize is I'm in this for the right reasons, completely for the right reasons. I have a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 22-year-old son. And I look at their futures right now, and I look at what we had as a future when I was growing up. And we had so much more than a lot of people in other parts of the world. But we're not going to have that for our children if we don't do something right now. And, these wars have got to stop. And I want people to realize all these wars, they're illegal, first off. Constitutionally, they're completely illegal. And we have a government that went out there and investigated Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire for steroid abuse. And they wouldn't even take on their own people in our government starting illegal wars. They wouldn't even have hearings on it. I mean, this is the culture we live in right now. And look at the innocent people dying abroad, and our own soldiers dying abroad in these horrible wars that are illegal. 90% of the people we're killing abroad are innocent people. You want to talk about creating terrorism? We're doing a hell of a job with that. When you're killing innocent people around the world, you're going to bring it home to roost. And we got to stop that. We got to stop nation building. We got to stop the drumbeat towards Iran and Syria. It's going to happen. People, please understand this is going to happen. We're paving the way for it right now. And if you go back to 9/11, Wesley Clark, who's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, and they're a big part of the problem we have, and most of the presidents have been members or are members of the Council of Foreign Relations. They're members of the Bilderbergs. They all work together. They own the Federal Reserve, as you and I both know. The shareholders are all the bankers, the same people. Wesley Clark, right after 9/11, was in an interview just within 2 weeks talking about how he was told we're going to go into Iraq, we're going to go into Syria, Iran, Somalia, and all these other countries. And he said it's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. This is 2 weeks after 9/11. Now, Iraq had no ties to al-Qaeda. In fact, we can't even get into that right now about al-Qaeda, but that's contrived also through the CIA. We sponsored the Mujahideen in '79 with Osama bin Laden on our payroll to CIA. But that's a whole new story. But this is all planned. This entire thing that's been going on has been planned for years, and they're right on track. And the people have got to wake up and realize that when they're predicting this stuff happening 10, 11 years ago, and it's all happening now, and they heard about it right after 9/11. 9/11 was used and purposely done to condition the masses and to put fear into all of us, just like Nazi Germany did, just like Stalin did, just like Lenin did. All these people did in their countries. They had a colossal event, a false flag attack, and they got the fear going. And all the people fell in line. They were willing to give up their constitutional rights and their freedom of speech and everything else because they're there to protect us. They're trying to help us. It's all conditioning. Edward Bernays was the king of conditioning the masses in America through marketing and in advertising. Our government worked with them to start wars and to condition people with corporations. And he said it was so simple. People, and I hate to say it, but he said people were stupid. People were stupid. You can get them to do anything you want. You just condition them. You make them feel like they're independent of everybody else. They're nonconformists, but they're conforming the entire time, and it's so simple to do to the masses.
Yes, it is,
Please
and that's
wake up, people.
Absolutely. Brainwashing, conditioning, absolutely. And, all brainwashing is repetitive messaging. So,
Exactly.
right? And so, I figured out a couple of years ago, I said it on a radio show that I was being interviewed, and they said, well, what do you do? I said, well, we need to do the same thing. We need to do the same technique. We need to go in and just repeat the message over and over and over to the public, and eventually they're going to get it.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
For every action, there is a reaction. Well, John, it's just been a pleasure. I've got to let you go. I've got a couple of announcements that we need to make, so I'm going to have to just let you go, but not forever, because I'm definitely going to be in touch with you. And, John, that's, amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know what a schedule you have, so thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, and I will get with you in the next couple of days, for sure.
Roxy, thank you so much, and it was completely enlightening for me also, and I really appreciate it, and we'll be in contact. But thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks so much.
You take care.
You too, John. Thank you. Have a great day. And that was John. Thank you. That was John Fitzgerald. Again, we have his information on our website. We'll put out the video later on this afternoon, and we'll get all of that information out to you and his phone number. Look, he's letting you call him. 925-383-9927 is his phone number. So we've got a couple of minutes left here, and I need to, now I'm going to get all choked up. I need to let you all know that I'm going to be moving from the GIC. Now, this does not mean that I'm not going to be working and doing other things with the GIC and Bernard Alvarez, but I've been offered to go with American Freedom Radio, and I have Bernard's blessings, which I love that. So just to get the information out, the show is going to continue to be on Fridays, but the time change is different. It's going to be from a 2-hour show now from 5 to 7 Mountain Time, and that's also Pacific Time right now, or it would be 8 to 10 Eastern Time. So you can find me on American Freedom Radio. We'll put the ads up sometime today as well, and I'm part of that family as well. I am not leaving my family at the GIC. We have a lot of projects that we are going to continue to work on, and if I could, our producer and owner of the GIC, if you're on the phone right now, can you come on my show, please?
Yes. Hello, Roxy. Hello, listeners. I just wanted to let all the listeners know how happy we are for Roxy Lopez, and actually moving to a much larger venue on American Freedom Radio. You have all of our support at GIC, all of our blessings, and we are looking forward to our live stream broadcast on April 17th with you and I.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it too. That's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you for saying that. Thank you for not just being the best. I mean, just being the best. It
unbelievable. People can actually spread their wings, and other people don't get offended. Isn't that funny?
Yes, indeed. And I appreciate that. This has been a long time coming, and it's been a hard decision. I've been going back and forth, and of course, finally, said, okay, I'm going to go. So I'll be with American Freedom Radio, and that's where everyone can find me from here out. And we'll still be doing some advertisements, and we do have a lot of great shows coming up right off the bat. So as usual, and I just want to say to everyone at the GIC, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to American Freedom Radio for my shows, but we're still going to work together at the GIC.
Absolutely, and we love you very, very much, Roxy.
Thank you. We love you too. By the way, what's your show next week?
Next week we have Glenn Broughton is going to be joining us. He is an expert on sacred wells and ley lines, so that should be very interesting this Monday at 1 p.m.
Sounds fabulous. I found the Just for an Art show on Monday at 1 p.m. Sounds wonderful. And I guess this is my big aloha to the GIC for radio now. And I can't believe that it feels interesting, but I'm onward and feeling really good about moving to our new time and new station. But this is my last show here, and it will go in the history books.
And the archives forever.
Forever. Absolutely, forever. So mahalo nui loa to everyone at the GIC. I'm still around. I will continue to still be around. And it sure has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me this stepping stone when you started my show back in June of 2011, for giving me this opportunity to reach people. And I appreciate it. I will never forget this.
We won't either, Rocky. We're very grateful we had you for the 10 months that we had you. We're very, very grateful and appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
So mahalo nui loa to everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.